Hello and a warm welcome back to our channel. Today marks an exciting transition in our RPG development series. We're about to embark on the basic of combat mechanics, but before we dive into the coding, let's take a sneak peek at what we'll be crafting in our upcoming videos. Here is a glimpse of the basic combat functionality we'll be building. This is where our RPG really starts to come alive with engaging and interactive gameplay. In preparation for this, firstly, we're gonna restructure existing code to ensure it's organized and efficient, which is vital for handling the complexity of combat mechanics. Secondly, we'll introduce namespace in C#, a crucial step in managing dependencies and keeping our codebase clean and scalable. Proper code structure and organizations are key to developing robust and maintainable game mechanics. By the end of today's session, you'll have a solid, well-organized foundation, setting you up perfectly for diving into the thrilling world of RPG combat coding. So let's get started. We have an exciting journey ahead, transforming our RPG's combat system from concept to reality. Stay tuned and let's bring the action to our game. Before we dive into the actual restructuring for our code, it's crucial to understand why we're doing this. Let's take a look at our current setup. We have a script named mover, which is responsible for both the raycasting and move our character. The question is this the best approach? Should raycasting and movement be handled together? And more importantly, is this where we should integrate combat mechanics? Our mover script is becoming a bit of a jack of all trades. While it handles its current task well, as we introduce combat, we'll be doing a lot more raycasting. This suggests that maybe it's time to separate raycasting from movement. Enter the concept of a player manager class. This player manager class would act as a central command instructing the mover to handle movement. The beauty of this structure is that it allows the player manager to also drive other aspects like combat through a separate combat class. By segregating these functionalities, we gain massive flexibility. For instance, we have a common interface for both combat and movement. This means we can swap out our player manager with an enemy manager using the same movement and combat code. What we achieve here is a streamlined development process where AI can control a character using the same codebase. Another advantage is specialization. While the player manager might handle unique actions, let's call them special abilities, these wouldn't necessarily be part of the enemy manager. This approach not only reduces our development load, but also adds depth to our game mechanics. So, by restructuring our code, we're setting ourselves up for a more organized, efficient, and versatile system. This will be invaluable as we delve deeper into the complexity of RPG game development. Let's get started. Okay, now that we're back into Unity, let's head over to our scripts folder. In the scripts folder, we want to create 3 more folders. So let's create the first one and let's call it Essentials. Let's create another one. Let's call it Movement. And let's create a third one and call it Management. Okay, so now that we have these 3 folders, we need to decide where our scripts will go. So I would put mine, the follow camera, inside the essential because this is an essential script for the entire game. And obviously the mover script is going to go into the movement. Awesome. Now, like we've discussed on the slides, we need to create something that will basically organize the entire parts of our character. So let's head over into our management folder, right click, and let's create a C# script and let's call it management. Let's call it player management actually, player management. Let's add the namespacing first. So let's go to the player management and above here we can say name space and give it a name. I would go with RPG-management and then open brackets. Now cut this part that we already have here and put it inside. Now the player management has the RPG.management namespace. Let's do the same for the mover. In the mover class, we do namespace and we pass in rpg.movement as a name, open and close brackets, and copy whatever you have here and inside there. Awesome. And there is one last place we need to do it. It's in the follow camera. So right here we do namespace rpg.essentials, and we pass in the follow camera. Okay, let's go back into the player management class. So in here, we're going to use combat as well as movement. So let's first create a new method, and let's do a private pool, and let's say movement. In here, we can copy and paste this part from the mover class. So we can do copy and paste it here, because we're gonna do the raycasting in the player management. And we need to change this part here because we don't have access to the nav mesh agent. But we can actually do get component mover, and we're gonna make a method called move to destination. Here we will need to pass in a hit.point, which is a vector 3. So you might encounter issues here because you do not have the namespace for the mover class. So here, where you have using Unity engine, you can also do using rpg.movement. So now you would have access to the mover class. Now back into the mover script, let me make it bigger here. Let's close that. So here, instead of move to click, we can say move to destination and pass in a vector 3 destination. And we will delete this raycasting stuff. And we're gonna be left off with agent.setDestination. It will still not work because by default, this method will be private. So we need to put here public. Okay, so now that we have the movement here, in the update method on the player management, we can say if movement, then we want to return. However, in the movement method right here, we are not returning anything just yet. So we can say if we have a hit and we also have an input that get mouse button, then we want to get the component like we were doing here. So let's move it inside the if statement. After this is done, we want to return true. Otherwise, here after the if statement, we want to return false. Now, because we've added the get mouse button here, if we move back into the mover class, we won't need this part here anymore. So let's delete it. Okay, now in the player management, let's see what else we're gonna do. So for now, we're not gonna require the stop method, so let's delete that. And we have the update. We check if we have movement by raycasting, and then checking if the mouse is pressed. If the mouse is pressed, we return true, and we return. Awesome. This doesn't make much sense right now, this if statement here, but you will see in a future video when we're adding the combat part that this would be required. Back in the mover script, we have this serialized field here, which we're not using anymore, so let's delete it. Let's check for that variable to see if we're using, so we're not using it anymore. There seemed to be a small bug here. On line 30, when we set destination, It's not hit that point anymore. It should be destination, as we pass that destination through the player management right here. And there you have it, with the namespace now seamlessly integrated into our code and folder structure thoroughly restructured. It's time to put our work to test. Let's hit play and see what's happening. Fantastic, everything is operating perfectly. In our next video, we're going to take an exciting step forward, creating the skeleton class for our combat system. This will not only lay the groundwork for dynamic engagement, but also enable us to effectively manage getting in range of our targets. Stay tuned for the pivotal development in our journey. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.